Ladies and gentlemen, the Vikings host the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday afternoon. And it's a Jim Nantz and Tony Romo game. What does that mean? Can the Vikings actually pull out a win against the Kansas City Chiefs? If they were to do that, how would they be able to take them down? We're going to talk about all that and more here on the latest episode of The Real Forno Show.
Yes. I should have. Welcome to The Real Forno Show. Hosted by Tyler Fornes, the managing editor of USA Today's Vikings Wire, writer for the College Football Network, publisher of Substack Run In Shooter, host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
You are looking live at the best looking TJ Hawkinson impersonator in the world. My name is Tyler Fornes. With me as always is producer Dave up in the top right corner. Dave, how are you?
Hey, it's good for a Wednesday.
Yeah, it is. I got the twins on to my right over here, and I am excited. Actually, no, it's your right. It's my left because I'm an idiot. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. And I may end up cheering if the Twins actually win a playoff series. Yesterday, they won their first playoff game since I was a freshman in high school back in 2004. And they're trying to do it all over again here against one of my favorite Twins of all time, Jose Barrios, who started for the the Toronto Blue Jays earlier today. But we're not here to talk baseball, even though that'll pop up here now and then just because the Twins are playing and it's the playoffs. But we're here to talk about the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Kansas City Chiefs this Saturday at 3:25 Central Time. But first, a couple housekeeping notes here, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't heard, we have subscriptions on the YouTube, and we've already kicked off some of that here by having people jump on the show last week. And you can do that at the $15 tier for $15 a month. We'll have another show like that coming up here soon. And when draft season comes around, there will be even more content for you to enjoy. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a great way to help support the show. Same way with the super chat. So the other ways you can do it that are just free, like, comment, subscribe, and share the show on social media and share it with your friends. Easy and costs you absolutely nothing but goodwill. And we greatly appreciate that. Now, let's get to our Minnesota Vikings. These Vikings are weird. So let's talk about them in terms of the ever so evil DVOA, Dave. And the reason why we're talking about DVOA is last year, DVOA was used to prove that the Vikings were fraudulent. It was used to show that even though their record was 13-4, they weren't a 13-4 football team. They were 27th in DVOA, 20th in offensive DVOA, and 27th in defensive DVOA. Now, the first number is overall. So, like, your all-encompassing football team and not just segmented into a specific position group. The concept of DVOA is rather simple, and it makes sense. How does your play match up against an average football team? Now, your definition of average may be different than what somebody else's definition of average is, but they have that calculated out with data, and they adjust it over time because average is different year over year. So if you have a negative offensive DVOA, you are worse than average. Yeah, that's what your performance says. If you have a positive defensive DVOA, you are worse than average. And the Vikings were both of those things last year. This year, it's a different story. Total DVOA, they are 14th. 12th in offensive DVOA and 20th in defensive DVOA. Dave, that's a far cry from where we were at last year. And it's also kind of hilarious because the Vikings are 1-3. They are worse record-wise than they were last year, despite the underlying metrics say that they're better than they were last year. And it's very weird to say that just because of how the Vikings have been over the course of the last 2 years, but it should give us some hope that the Vikings can actually pull this off against Kansas City Chiefs.
Can you repeat those numbers again?
Which one? This year, last year, both?
This year.
This year, total DVOA is 14th. Offensive DVOA is 12th. Defensive DVOA is 20th. So based on total DVOA, we are a slightly above average football team. Offensive DVOA, we are an above average football team. Defensive, we're slightly below average. That sounds about right considering what we've seen so far on the football field. If the Vikings hadn't turned it over 11 times, I think it would be a much different story. Those DVOA numbers on offense in total, probably much higher.
Now I'm looking at the tool DVOA right now. And yes, I agree. If you look at the team DVOAs, that's what it shows. If you click on the Vikings, it shows something different, which is weird. It shows 9th overall offense, 3rd overall passing, 28th overall offense or rushing. And on defense, 21st overall, 22nd against passing, and 15th against the run. That is strange. I don't know why those numbers disagree. And you're on mute.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I was clearing my throat, so I didn't want everybody to hear me try and get the little bit of gunk in my throat. Well, you have to send me that because I actually don't have the full access, so I had to grab those numbers from a secondary source. So I would absolutely like to have.
Like I said, if you read where they rank the teams, they've got us 14th overall, 12th on offense, and 20th on defense. It's just it's a difference in their pages, individual pages, which is interesting. I find it fascinating.
Okay, that is very fascinating. And
special teams at 21st.
Yeah, that's wild. I wonder with the transition by taking this data from Football Outsiders, which unfortunately is now defunct because the owners of Football Outsiders are dum-dums. The people who bought it, not Aaron Schatz. Aaron Schatz is not a dum-dum. He took his data over to FTN, and he's doing great, which is great. Schatz is a really nice guy, and his information and data has been really helpful in trying to be predictive about football.
Right, because the algorithm puts in strength of schedule and a whole bunch of other stuff that normal rankings, if you go with the Elias Sports Bureau stuff, the normal stuff, you don't see.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, the Twins are now 3 outs away from winning the wild card round. Heck, yes. I like the sound of that. And I'm checking something here real quick. Nope. Perfect. All right. Let's talk about the offensive line. And Mateo brings up an interesting point. Everybody says that the offensive line is bad, and all the metrics say that, like the composite metrics that Ben Ballin puts together, they're 6th in the league in offensive line play. 6th. That's pretty good. Now you can say offensive line play is down throughout the league, which I would agree that it is. Defender, like the free athletic freaks are not playing offensive line. They're playing defensive line. I don't blame them. I'd rather play defensive line too. Let's just be honest here. And
if you're good, you can make good money playing defensive line.
Yeah. But the Vikings offensive line's been good. And I'm going to be honest, it's very frustrating when I keep hearing pushback. Oh, they suck. We need to replace Ed Ingram. We need to replace Bradbury. Well, Bradbury's been hurt, so kind of can't replace him.
Schlottman's done rather well.
Yeah, if you go by PFF metrics, he's 12th out of 34 qualifying centers. That's very good. Like, if Bradbury was that, we'd be very happy with it. But it's his backup that's been doing that. And Ed Ingram is 22nd out of 74 guards, which is above average. Ezra Cleveland is 12th. PFF did a all-pro team based on the first 4 games, so at the quarter of the season mark. He was their backup left guard. Brian O'Neill was the starting right tackle. Like, this offensive line is playing well, And I think there's too many narratives built into some people's heads, which I can completely understand. Offensive line has been garbage for the better part of, I don't know, 5 years. And now that they're playing well, it can be hard to get that narrative out of your head. And I'm not saying that as like an insulting thing. It's true. You get something ingrained in your head for so long, you start to like firmly believe it, and it's going to take a lot of data for you to let that go.
Question.
The Vikings offensive line is playing well. It's that simple. Ed Ingram's playing well. Ezra Cleveland's playing well. Schlottman's playing well. The tackles are playing well. And the losses are normal. Every offensive line loses. Everyone. Every single one. Especially to good defensive lines. Good defenses. And Roger makes a great point. People expect Cousins to have 5 seconds to throw every play. That's not reality. If you block for 3 seconds, ESPN's the pass block win rate is calculated on 2.5 seconds. If you hold your block for 2.5 seconds, it's considered a win. If Cousins holds the ball for 4 seconds and Ed Ingram's guy gets the sack, people are going to blame Ed Ingram. Ingram held a block for almost 5 seconds. Come on. We have to look at it logically here. You can't expect him to hold on to that ball or hold on to his block for that long. Just like you can't expect a corner to cover for 5 seconds. That's not how the game works. You play within short spurts. So if you hold him for 3 seconds, you did your job. How is it frustrating? Sure. But that's why context is king. You have to marry film with data, and you have to be willing to change your opinion once you get more information. And that's where I think people are struggling right now, because the information is saying that Ed Ingram's playing pretty good football. The data says it. The film says it. But the perception hasn't changed, and it's very frustrating.
When Ed Ingram screws up, it's usually big. My question, though,
but it's not always that simple.
My question is, has Schlottman won himself a starting job? And by the way, he ranks 6th amongst all active centers in pass blocking.
No, I don't think so. I think Schlottman's done a very good job. I don't think he's been nearly good enough to usurp Bradbury. He's basically been Bradbury. That's all we want him to do. We want him to play relatively well within himself, but you don't he's not special. He's not like, let's say Lewis Seen replaced Harrison Smith for 4 games, and Seen has his high pedigree and he plays really well. He has this freaky athleticism. That's a different story. Schlottman's a backup center. And I don't think that we're going to have to worry about Schlottman taking over Bradbury's job unless Bradbury absolutely stinks. And until we have some sort of tangible proof on that, I don't think we should be worried about him losing his job. I get it. I understand it. I see where you're coming from. But to me, it's a no. Dave, you're muted. You did it. You pulled to me.
Yes, I did, because I was killing soldiers today. Just killed a Ranger Creek 36 caliber Texas Bourbon. There's
I was wondering where killing soldiers came from. I'm like, Dave, this isn't the war.
Soldiers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm coming up on a whiskey run sometime soon. I've gone through most of my stash. There's
nice.
I don't know about Schlottman. I keep him in there for a while and just nurse Bradbury's back and see how it goes.
See, I would agree there. I think if Schlottman's playing well, you don't have to rush him back. You really don't. You can take it easy. You can be patient. And I think the Vikings have been very patient with Bradbury, especially because this is an injury that I'm not going to say it got re-aggravated, but it feels like the same exact injury he had last year. And if you remember, he missed 2 games with the injury and then ended up coming back was going to come back after that Colts game. He got an fender bender, re-aggravated the injury.
Yeah, it was rear-ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, you're looking at Bradbury missing another 3 games, and then he comes back for the playoff game. Plays okay in the playoff game. Schultman had broken his leg, so he was basically MIA for the playoffs. And Chris Reed is not a natural center, and you could really tell the game and a half or whatever that he had to play before that. I think they're taking it easy with Bradbury, which is smart, but I also think that they don't have to worry so much because Schultman is playing well, and that's really nice to have. All right, let's I just want to point this out. Dave L in the chat says Tyler is right. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't tell Tyler's wife.
I'm going to point that out to her later, and it's going to be funny. She started listening to some of these shows now, which is even more hilarious.
Hey, Caleb.
When she comes across this bit, she's gonna. I'll hear about it. Let me tell you. But it's. I'm not going to say it's just with the offensive line because it's not. Everything else. Like, you have perceptions. Like, going into the 2022 season, I had perception of Cousins. And he played much better than those perceptions. Guess what? My perceptions changed. And I changed with the data. I just wish more people were willing to do the same. Because I'd rather be right and evolve that opinion and continue to be right on whatever it is than just try to prove that my original take was right. It sounds more arrogant than it is, but you should be willing to adapt based on changes. That's what every business does. Consider yourself, when it comes to football analysis and your opinions, a business. If you won't evolve and change your opinions, guess what? You're going to go bankrupt. And that's kind of where I sit. It's one of those things. And by the way, Dave, the Twins are 3 outs away from winning the wild card round.
Good.
3 outs, baby. 3 outs. Joan Duran is about to come in, and he's going to throw 103-mile-an-hour heaters. Oh, yeah. All right. Let's talk about a couple other things because this Chiefs game is very interesting. I want to talk about the running game for a minute. Nick Olson. You might know Nick Olson from a numerous amount of things, especially the Twitter machine or X machine, whatever you want to call it. But he also hosts the podcast Kindred Skulls. When you're done here, go check him out. It's nitty-gritty football stuff. I love nitty-gritty football stuff. But he pointed out that this is the first time under Kevin O'Connell, the first time in a long time that the Vikings had more gap runs than zone runs. Gap meaning like power, counter, duo, where you're attacking a gap and you're not just, hey, zone blocking where you block an area and then the running back picks where to go. These running plays tell you where the design is. You can obviously change your path if you need to, but that's not what the run play is designed for. So they ran a lot more duo, which is essentially you have a tight end and you're running towards that side. Okay. And then you have your offensive lineman. They double people and it creates rushing lanes. And then once that double is secured, somebody climbs to the second level and gets a linebacker. That's why on Twitter, you see a lot of people talking, oh, is this zone or duo? Because they can look very similar, but if you know what you're looking for, they're not. The reason being, when you have people who are good at covering zone runs, I just had a brain fart there. My goodness. You're talking about a style of like play. So they like to, the defensive line would like slash at the offensive lineman, which is a method to, stop zone runs. Well, with duo, it doesn't really work. So that's kind of how, that's like a counter punch. And the Vikings were able to gash the Panthers. First 2 weeks, 69 yards rushing. Last 2 weeks, 265. Alexander Madison's 4th overall in rush yards over the last 2 weeks with 188. The nice part is with this Chiefs defense, they could be missing linebacker Nick Bolton, who's a fantastic player on the second level for them. And he was out last week with an ankle injury. Could miss this week as well. Chris Jones has a groin, but he practiced in full today. So I don't think that he would end up missing any time. And you have those two things. Pair that with the fact that the defense, they're averaging a 39% success rate against rush plays, which is only 14th in the league. They're 22nd in EPA per rush play at negative 0.043, which sounds bad, but when it comes to expected points added, teams don't generate a lot of expected points added with the run game. The run game is a means to an end. It's a means to set things up. The run game is essentially a chess match with the defense. Sometimes it's about, hey, I'm just going to blow you up and I'm going to beat you down by like just running power after power and just wearing the defense out. Sometimes it's a chess match, like draw plays. You're expecting a pass, drops back, hand off quick, and then all of a sudden you get a 10-yard chunk on a run play because they weren't expecting it, and the defensive line comes forward. And they're rushing the passer, not protecting the run. So the run game, it's not necessarily the most efficient in the world, but I will say it's good and it's necessary for what offenses try to do because it syncs up so much and you can set people up. It's like in chess. Oh, I want to take your rook. Well, I move my bishop to one spot and I have a fork. You're in check going one way and I'll just take your rook going the other. That's kind of what you want to do here. You want to get these guys in position to just take advantage of them. And that's what the running game can give you. And so far over the past few weeks, the Vikings have started to figure out, and it's been a net positive for the passing game.
Then why does KOC, when it's 3rd and 2, go for the long ball shot instead of a easy conversion?
I think it's not that simple. It appears that way on television because Kirk is throwing it. So oh my gosh, Emilio Pagan is up in the bullpen because Duran apparently has some kind of blister or something. They were looking at him for a while. He's only thrown 2 pitches. That does not sound good. But when you talk about these plays where they take shots, it's twofold. One, they have shorter routes to go to. 2, when you throw a deep route on 3rd and short, that means you're willing to go for it on 4th down. It's not just I'm just going to chuck it up on 4th down or on 3rd down and then punt. There's a plan. And you'll see a lot of teams try this, Dave. Okay, I'm going to go for it on 4th down, so I'll chuck it deep. No harm, no foul. I've got 2 shots at this. And if you have the right shot play, it's fine because a lot of times those can get open. It just gets inherently frustrating when you talk about these guys and you miss. It's okay that you miss. You're taking a shot. It's an opportunity. Then you have Justin, you're ahead of me. I didn't seen that pitch yet when you said 2 more outs. But let's look back at the I'm trying to remember what game. Well, I know in the playoff game it was 3rd and 8 and they tried a deep shot before that 4th down. Sometimes you just have the right play called against the defense and sometimes it just doesn't work. Kevin O'Connell's not trying to just hit deep shots recklessly. It's all for a purpose and it's all for a reason and it links together. So I think I understand your frustration, but I don't think it correlates the way you might be thinking. Does that make sense?
If you could guarantee 2 yards, if you're 3rd and 8, you can guarantee 2 yards by running Madison, on a power type blocking scheme, run Madison. Then you have a fresh set of downs.
Sure, that logic makes sense. But if you have a play where you think you can gash him for 30 and you have the right situation and you also have an outlet underneath where if that does not come open, you can just take advantage and get those few yards. That's the philosophy here. And that's why a lot of times you'll see those shots. Obviously, you'd prefer to just have the fresh set of downs in a vacuum because you feel like it's a guarantee. I remember growing up playing NFL Blitz. You have an opportunity every time you score a touchdown. You get the free one, or you get an opportunity to go for two. And I was always the guy who would go for two. Why? I have an opportunity at an extra point on top. Like the extra point is one, but another point. And to me, that was worth the risk because I was confident enough in my abilities. And that's kind of what the play calling aspect is. Kevin O'Connell, for a lot of people criticize the play calling. It's hard to criticize the play calling without looking at the all-22 and without understanding what the play is trying to do. Sometimes what we see on TV isn't the whole story. You can just have great coverage. You can, like, if somebody just mans up on Justin Jefferson, like, sometimes that happens. And all of a sudden, a play goes awry. Okay, well, back to the drawing board. What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Speaking of coverage, don't the Chiefs have two of the best corners in the league?
No, they have two solid corners. L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie are fine. I would even say they're good, but I'm not going to call them great. I don't think they're game-changing type players. The Twins are one strike away, by the way, Dave.
Good.
But overall they're good. But if you're putting one of them on Justin Jefferson, I'm trusting Jefferson to win every one of those battles. And the Twins just won a series. Heck yeah. 2-0 over the Jays. Let's go. I am very happy.
Twins win. Twins win.
Yes, they did. Cheers.
Now, for those in the crowd or you, Tyler, will they be waiting to see who they play next?
See, they're the 3rd seed. No, they play the 2 seed. They will automatically play the 2 seed. I think it's the Orioles. Yeah, I think it's the Orioles because
according to Cuck, it's the Astros.
Oh, it's the Astros. So the Orioles have the 1 seed. All right, Twins Astros. Last time the Twins were in the playoffs, the Astros eliminated us because we stunk at the end of both of those games. Oh, it was so frustrating. But yeah,
that's the years the Astros cheated.
No, this was 2020. Okay. Like this is some pretty great stuff, and I am thrilled. The fact that the Twins have made it. This is just great.
Roger says O's are 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Orioles being the 1 seed is just wild.
Right.
I gotta send a message quick. There we go.
You do that, Davey. I agree with you. I'd like to see more going for the throat. I want to see that aggression that Brian Flores has on the defense translate to the offense and not settle for. I know we won't, but I want to see it. I want to see run-up games.
Mm-hmm.
Bury somebody. Try to beat Miami's 70-point game. Like I said, prior to the season, I expect the Vikings to score 30 points a game. They have yet to do it so far this season. Now, turning over the football has not helped that one little bit. How are the Vikings going to solve that on Sunday?
I don't know. I don't even hear what you asked. I'm just on cloud 9 right now. Survive what?
The turnovers. Right now, they're on pace to have the most turnovers in NFL history.
Yeah, that'll regress. The thing with regression that we've talked about a lot is that you can positively regress. So I'm not going to call it progression, but that's basically what it is. When you have a stat that's very volatile, that's not sustainable or predictable year over year, or even game over game. It's going to come back down to earth. The Vikings being undefeated in one-score games. That's one of those stats. The Vikings turning it over like absolute crazy people. That's one of those things too. They're not going to turn it over at least twice a game every single game this year. It's not going to happen. When will that stop? Who knows?
Hopefully someday.
I hope so too. But it's just unfortunate for many, many reasons, because like it just is what it is. Like you're going to have turnovers. You're going to have things happen where you just can't. And it's frustrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to fumble every game. They're not going to throw multiple picks every game. And when that eventually stops, you're going to see a lot more consistency with the offense. Yeah, I can hardly contain myself right now. I'm very, very happy the Twins are not a laughingstock anymore. But with the turnovers, they just need to play smarter football. And even the fumble against the Chargers, Hawkinson had the ball like this. He had both hands. The guy just ripped it out from him. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens, and it is what it is. Like, it's annoying. It's frustrating. But sometimes you just have to admit the other guy just won. And for lack of a better term, that's okay. It'll happen every once in a while. And I'm just going to kind of let that slide. Like, if it keeps happening, I like to try and look at each turnover individually, because each individual turnover means something different, and there's a different reason why. And if you can start solving those individual reasons, those turnovers will decrease on their own. And you don't have to worry about them like trying to fix it otherwise. Like, luck will fix some of it. Probability will fix some of it just naturally. But at the end of the day, you still have to fix the little things that you do or don't do. And Kirk Cousins throwing late on a flat route in the end zone, if he does that again, Dave, we're going to have problems. We're going to have bigger problems than that. But it's, you fix, like, we'll wrap this up because I'm kind of saying the same thing over and over again. You got to fix the root of each of those turnovers, and then you can worry about the regression part of it.
Question. Mahomes had a bad game last week. Is he going to bounce back this week?
I don't know. Is he hurt? That's my question. Because you can be hurt per se and not miss any time and not technically be on the injury report. Kirk Cousins wasn't on the injury report at all last year due to that rib injury. Didn't really impact his play. Didn't do this, that, or the other thing. He practiced all the way through it. But the thing with the injury to Mahomes, or potential injury to Mahomes, is he was missing throws uncharacteristically, and that's why I thought he had an injury, because you don't just miss throws short like that. Mahomes has always been pinpoint accurate. Why wasn't he against the Jets? What was different? And to me, the one thing that makes sense is a potential injury. Could just be a tweak. And we all know how people love tweaks. I'm expecting him to be fine. Maybe being indoors and the potential of no Taylor Swift, which we don't know if Taylor Swift will be there. And that's all I'm going to talk about with that, because quite frankly, it's annoying and tedious.
But she's bringing new eyeballs to the NFL, and that's a good thing.
I absolutely agree. But that we're talking about the on-field product, so I'm not going to really talk about that much, because that doesn't necessarily coincide with what we're dealing with here. Now, when I look at the rest of it, like, if Mahomes is 80%, that's still pretty good. You could argue that might even be better than Kirk Cousins, because it's still Patrick Mahomes. there's going to be opportunities for the Chiefs to really gash this Vikings defense. And gashing this Vikings defense is really important for multiple reasons. Because if you can gash the Vikings defense, that's going to set you up for success. And the one question I have with this Vikings defense is, how are they going to approach Mahomes? Are they going to approach him with heavy blitzing? Or are they not going to blitz him at all? They blitzed Justin Herbert, who is a top 5 quarterback in this league. They blitzed him 82% of the time. Against the Panthers, 30.8% of the time. They told the young guy, hey, figure it out. Oh, Mary, that's wonderful news. Now let's talk about defense. Mary's got a great defense. She's getting out of the hospital. She forced the 3 and out on that. Well done. Now, when you look at, I say that a lot, when you look at, but it's true. The Vikings defense, how they handle Patrick Mahomes is going to be fascinating. Blitz him to make decisions quicker and just hope you can play contain well enough? Or are you going to just make him beat you with a bunch of short routes underneath and nickel and dime you down the field? That's basically what they did to the Eagles. They told Jalen Hurts and Eagles, if you want to beat us, you're not throwing the football and you're going to have to run. And guess what? They did. And they ran for almost 260 yards and won the football game. Sometimes you have to be willing to die by 1,000 cuts in order to take that next step, in order to win a football game. And they may be willing to do that with Mahomes. I would expect a lot of creativity with the blitzes, some Bengal hawk. I would expect some unique looks to try and get Mahomes confused, guys bailing out at the last second, like cover 2 turning into cover 3, Tampa 2 turning into cover 1, like a lot of inverted cover 2 as well. Just all kinds of weird stuff to get Mahomes guessing. And he doesn't have the strongest receiver room either. He has Travis Kelce, but the receivers are going to be a fascinating outlook, because how are they going to be able to continue building that chemistry with Mahomes? Are they going to be able to? Are they going to just be fine? And is the Vikings defense going to be able to take advantage of that and not let them get open within a few seconds and make Mahomes scramble? Well, maybe the Vikings choose to just play contain on Mahomes and keep him in the pocket so he can't do Superman things. And he has to stay within the confines of that pocket in order to win. And then the coverage is just too good on the back end. How is all that going to play out? To me, the defense is the catalyst to this win, because Kirk Cousins has shown that he can come from behind. He's done it every game this year. Now, they haven't all been successful, but he was down 27-7 to the Eagles. He was like a couple more minutes on the clock away from being able to finish that comeback against Philadelphia. Came from behind against Tampa Bay. Tampa got that field goal in the fourth quarter, and it didn't end up working out. Same thing with the game against the Chargers. Down 21-10, got it to 24-21. Now, they didn't win the game, but he's comfortable coming back and just gripping it and ripping it. And that's good. That's good.
I've got a question I've been asked quite a few times this week. Who's going to cover Kelce?
I don't know. I honestly would consider Byron Murphy. Murphy's a little bit smaller, but he plays in the slot and he can travel. That's key with Kelce, travel. But I would expect them to figure out a way to control him somehow with different looks, big nickel packages, and this is where some of that blitzing might come into play, Dave, where you blitz and you have a guy manned up with him, or maybe you even double him, like have a guy shallow and have a guy like one-on-one to try and eliminate some of those passes. I don't really have a great answer to that, because I genuinely don't know. I don't think the Vikings are going to have a singular answer here, Dave. I really don't. I think they're going to have to do a lot of different things and keep Mahomes guessing, and that might be their strategy.
Could be. I was thinking primarily, I suspect it'll be Metellus. But
Yeah,
like you said, they can mix it up, and they probably will to confuse Mahomes. So
yeah. This is going to be a really fun game, and this could end up being the 40-3 route that we saw last year with the Dallas Cowboys coming into town. But I don't think let me finish. I don't think they quite have enough firepower on the outside or at pass rush in order to really make that happen. Because the frustrating part with the Cowboys game is we had their coverage beat. We just couldn't protect. And the protection is honestly what doomed the Vikings in that game. Now, are they going to be able to protect enough against Chris Jones? Chris Jones could be a catalyst here because of his ability to rush the passer from the interior and on the edge. George Karlaftis is a good football player, but how is that going to look? And the offensive line has been playing really well lately. Can they step up to this challenge? I want to see, can they step up to the challenge? I need Ed Ingram to go one-on-one with Chris Jones and win as often as he loses. Because there are reps where nobody really wins, just kind of there. But if he loses and allows like 5 pressures to him, I want him to beat his ass 5 times and not just hold him in place. I want him to win. To me, that could be the catalyst here. Jones is going to get his pressures. Limit them. How are you going to limit them? You need guys to step up on the interior without having to double, because the second you start doubling him, that's when Steve Spagnuolo is going to send a blitz right where that double is supposed to have been blocking. And they're going to delay it, and then that's going to get home. So you need Ingram, Cleveland, and either Bradbury or Schlottman to step up, handle that. Now, they handled Derek Brown relatively well this past week. Derek Brown, first-round pick a couple years ago out of Auburn, nose tackle, good football player. Well, if you end up beating Derek Brown, that at least gives you some hope that they might be able to contain Chris Jones a little bit. Brown, much bigger guy. He's got that great first step, but he's also really strong. And that makes sense. Mateo asks, why are all of our corners outside Evans built like high schoolers, so small and scrawny? The only one who's really small and scrawny, Byron Murphy Jr. Blackman's a little scrawny, but he's not small. He's 5'11 and a half. Like, that's fine. That's good size for a corner. You don't need to worry about that per se. Now, if he was Trey Hodges-Tomlinson, the rookie out of TCU, who's like 5'7 and a half, yeah, I have a problem with that. But I'm not so worried about our corners. I think our corners have actually been playing relatively well, which is awesome. But this is a complicated game for all the reasons we mentioned so far. Mainly, you're just dealing with Patrick Mahomes, man. He's tough. You're going to give up points.
He's the defending Super Bowl champ.
Yep.
He got there for a reason.
Yeah, they did. And it's obviously because of Mahomes. And yeah, we're going to find out. This is a fascinating football game. And one player that I'm interested to see is Jordan Addison. How is he going to bounce back from his worst game as a pro? And he's a rookie. It's not even bad that he was just fine. He was fine against the Panthers, but 1 target, no catches. He did force a 43-yard defensive pass interference, which great. He got blown up a little bit in the blocking against the Panthers, and Justin Jefferson almost got hurt. The thing with blocking is a lot of it just has to do with effort. A guy like him's just going to lose more often than not, than somebody else will, because he's small. That's fine. Blackman's about 180, Mateo, so he's fine. I get the issue, but I'm okay with it. Addison needs to just show more effort in blocking, and he's done that. They had him shoot through the C gap and climb to the second level, and he held his block relatively well. You continue to get that kind of performance from him, I feel pretty good. And he's going to get more and more involved as time goes on because it's Jordan Addison. He's fine. And he's still figuring this out. And add those things up together, and there we go. All right. I'm trying to think. We have a few more minutes left in the show. If there's anything else that we have not talked about yet that we need to get out into the open here, Dave?
How are Odie and Eclair doing?
Well, I hope they're not terrorizing my main level right now because they are downstairs unsupervised, but they're doing great. Eclair has actually kind of become Odie's mom. She's going all mom on him. Like, you know, how like moms like bathe their young, like with their tongues. She started doing that to Odie, and they're just having a blast. They were downstairs, or outside yesterday, just running around doing zoomies together. It was pretty fun. Eclair's doing great. She doesn't like to go outside to go pee, so we got her like a little fake grass patch. That's kind of run its course. So we bought real grass. They sell real grass for dogs to go potty. So we're getting that set up tomorrow, and I think she's gonna really love it.
Dave, Booth did have special team snaps last week. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Well, guys, let's kind of finish it off this way. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll answer them. Otherwise, we might get out of here just a little bit early today.
Yes,
because
Jarek McKinnon's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah,
Clifford,
go ahead.
You ask about Reisner. Are we going to see Reisner?
I don't think so. And like, the offensive line's playing really well. You don't just bring a guy in for X amount of snaps unless he's like a first round pick. And even then, it's really hard to do because when a unit's playing well, you don't disrupt it. You don't mess with the chemistry. You don't replace a player that's playing well. Like, Reisner may not be better than Ed Ingram or Ezra Cleveland. And if they really thought he was better than those guys, he probably would have played last week. These guys are playing well. You don't disrupt it. At the end of the day, the Vikings needed to add depth when Oli Udoh went out with that torn quad muscle. I think that's all that is. It was a depth signing. And I don't think you're going to get to see much of Dalton Reisner this year. And that's fine. Because if they're playing well, you don't want to see him. Like, that's just one of those things. Davey, I have not watched the 50s wrestling yet. It's on my list. I work like a dog, and I haven't had much of a time to really watch anything.
Dan asks, who's the best center coming out next year?
I'm going to be really honest. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of work on the trenches yet. I do a lot of college football stuff, and I do college fantasy. So I have a really good understanding of the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. I don't have that with the trenches yet. I'm working on it, but it's just not there. I know. I think if I remember correctly, Dan really likes the center from Oklahoma. I've heard he's pretty good, but I'll get to the trenches. I know it's a great offensive tackle class, which, of course, great tackle classes. We have two of them, but yeah, the offensive line actually looks like a really solid class this year, and I'm excited to kind of dive into it. But I have waited on watching tape for now because, well, the Vikings aren't out of it yet. If they drop to 1-6 or 2-5 or something like that, I'll start diving into some tape, but not quite yet. Well, Dave, I think that's it.
That works for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I know I kind of got off the rails a little bit because the Twins ended up winning a playoff series for the first time since I was in middle school. 2002, 21 years ago. Everyday Eddie Guardado saved that game for the Twins. And yeah, it's a cool day. And I'm really excited to see that. Clifford, what do you mean JJ turned down a mega contract? We don't even know if there's an official offer made by the Vikings and what that looks like. Yeah, obviously they didn't come to an agreement on one, but it's a complicated issue. I haven't heard anything. So if you've heard something, let us know. Let us know in the comments when we're going to finish this up here. We'll be back Sunday after the game. And on top of that, next week, there will be a special episode. Judd Zulgad is coming back, and we're going to sit around and talk ball. That one might be pre-recorded, so just pay attention to that. We will let you know when we have that ready to rock and roll. In the meantime, go Vikings. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. And what do you say?
Make sure you watch Two Old Blockers on Saturday as we pregame the show. But what we say, SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Fornes and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!